Hello, I'm going to talk today about how to develop logic models moving from the ideal to the real world. Logic models are an increasingly central feature of intervention research and service improvement in healthcare. They provide a simple picture of the idea underpinning change efforts and are used to develop understanding of how change occurs, often referred to as a theory of change. The basic logic model template features in the slide. If then logic underpins this, if we do the activities, then the outcomes and impacts should occur. These simple logic models are particularly useful at the early stages of projects to develop a shared understanding of how projects are going to work. However, not all projects follow a simple linear process. Some change efforts fail in certain settings where they succeed in others. And this is not captured in basic logic models. I will explore here how to ensure logic models capture how interventions work in the real world through an example of a toolkit. Called the Yorkshire PET, this toolkit was designed to enhance patient experience and was tested across 6 diverse hospital wards, involving a collaboration between ward staff, patient representatives, and toolkit facilitators. By facilitators, I mean members of the research team who worked closely with ward teams to help implement the toolkit. I developed a logic model as part of the project's evaluation through qualitative research. This involved observations of how things were working in the ward, interviews with key people, and the toolkit facilitators recorded observations in diaries, all of which provide rich qualitative insight about how things are working on the ground. Here is the basic logic model for the Yorkshire PET. The inputs include the toolkit, ward staff, facilitator time and expertise, and the insights of patient representatives. The activity box essentially outlines the core toolkit process through which teams were guided by the facilitators. One of the early findings was that NHS patient experience survey data was not detailed or timely enough to support ward level improvement work. So the patient representatives, supported by the facilitators, went onto wards and talked to patients about their experiences, creating timely qualitative insights. The process of sense making, prioritization then occurred with ward staff, once again guided by the toolkit facilitators, and changes were made to improve patient experience, which were evaluated in real time using quality improvement techniques. These activities are core to the toolkit, and the key assumption laid out in this model is that the toolkit's successful use on hospital wards will drive improvements in patient experience. If the activities are enacted, then the outputs and outcomes should follow, leading to sustained improvements to patient experience. The problem is that not all wards went on this journey. On some wards, additional activities were enacted. For example, sensing low staff morale and engagement on one ward, the facilitators adapted what they did and spent time celebrating positive patient feedback in order to enhance staff morale and engagement before they sought to implement the core toolkit process. By contrast, another ward was unable to proceed because of significant staff service pressures. This diversity of journeys isn't captured in this basic logic model. It presents just one causal process. As such, it may provide an overly simplistic and optimistic view of the intervention. One way to enhance logic models is to incorporate lists of moderators to project success. Andrea Hamblery's excellent improvement science snapshot on how to identify barriers and enablers provides useful background here, although when logic modeling, these need to be rephrased as moderators to account for how they vary across different settings. For example, where ward leadership was enabling in one ward, it constituted a barrier on others. It is also useful, when logic modelling, to think through at what level the moderators are situated. In this case, are they internal to the ward setting or external to it? Taking staff resources, for example, this is a factor that clearly resides outside of the ward setting. If staff resources are experienced as a barrier to the ward, staff from other wards might have to be brought in to free up capacity. In this way, the list of moderators is useful to inform assessments of potential ward settings and to think through what is required to implement the toolkit successfully. This implies a more nuanced and grounded assumption about the toolkit's effectiveness. Yes, its successful use may drive improvements to patient experience, but outcomes will only be achieved if factors such as ward leadership or staff resources are conducive on a ward. This is one way to ensure that logic models don't present an idealized account of a project. Alternatively, what I call a real-world logic model can be developed. The outer and inner context boxes here provide more detail about the context. Future implementation teams can use this detail to assess ward readiness and to adapt their approach accordingly. The twin circles in the middle represent how the key facilitator role must adapt to the input of ward teams and the delivery setting. On some ward settings, the core toolkit process may be enacted straight away. However, where barriers are experienced, these may need to be modified first, resulting in soft peripheral outcomes. For example, the toolkit facilitator's attempts to nurture staff engagement on one ward improved staff engagement on that ward, which in turn created a more conducive context. The core toolkit process could then be implemented, resulting in the core outcomes. This two-way dynamic relationship between the toolkit processes and the peripheral outcomes is displayed in the model. For a full account of how to develop these real-world logic models, see the paper listed. We offer this as a template for complex and adaptive interventions. To summarize, basic logic models are a useful framework. I've shown how these can be tested and refined to capture how projects work in the real world through more flexible logic modeling. I want to emphasize here that logic model is a creative endeavor. There's no right or wrong, and often a basic logic model will suffice. If you have any questions or would like to explore this approach further, please check the list of reading and references provided. Otherwise, thank you for listening.